Have you ever thought about going to a place where no one has ever returned? An abandoned hotel, room number 306, where once the door closes, no one escapes. Are these just rumors or something more? When you discover the truth, will your heart remain steadfast? The mysterious hotel. Rena and her friends had been thinking about visiting an abandoned, mysterious hotel on the outskirts of the city, a place they'd never heard of before. Stories about this hotel were circulating in their minds, but they thought of them as mere rumors. Eventually, they decided to spend a night there to see how much truth there was in these stories. When they arrived at the hotel, an ancient building appeared before them, its exterior looking old and decaying. The air around the hotel was filled with the smell of dust, and old paintings were hanging on the walls. The atmosphere was quiet and desolate, with no one sitting in the lobby, and there were no other guests in sight. However, they didn't think much of it and headed straight to room number 306. Rena felt a bit uneasy, as though she were stepping into a place that held dark secrets. As soon as they entered the room, the door suddenly slammed shut, and an eerie silence fell behind them. Rena found this very strange, but dismissed it as mere coincidence. Her friends, laughing and chatting, seemed unfazed, but Rena couldn't shake the strange feeling of fear, as though something was wrong. The sad sounds from the window. In the stillness of the night, Rena walked to the window and gazed outside. A thick darkness surrounded the hotel, and she noticed some movement around the trees, as if the branches were swaying or someone was walking below. Then, suddenly, she heard mournful sounds coming from room number 306, as if someone was pleading for help from beneath the trees in a voice full of deep sorrow. "Will you save me?" Rena took a deep breath and tried to focus on the sound. She said, "It's probably just the noise of an animal. We don't need to be afraid." But her friends didn't agree with her, and they looked visibly frightened. The room fell silent as everyone exchanged uneasy glances. Rena felt as though she wasn't alone. The sounds didn't stop until they finally agreed to leave the room. The horrifying truth. Over the next few hours, strange events began to unfold in room number 306. Bloodstains started appearing on the walls, and unusual faces began to appear in the mirror. Rena and her friends trembled in fear, and each of them wondered if they were dreaming. But when these things began to feel too real, a wave of unease surged through them. They saw a strange light flickering inside the room, accompanied by whispers. As they moved closer, a horrifying sight appeared. A figure with a glowing face was slowly advancing toward them. Rena tried to convince her friends that it was all in their heads, but the fear inside them continued to grow. The door to the room opened, and a whisper echoed. "Will you escape?" Rena and her friends didn't want to acknowledge the reality of the voice, but when the door slammed shut and they tried to leave, they realized the door wouldn't open. The locked door and regret. All of Rena and her friends' attempts to escape proved fruitless. The door was so strong that no matter how hard they tried, it wouldn't open. A deep sense of regret filled them, realizing they had made a huge mistake by coming to this hotel. The terrifying truth was that they had ended up in a place from which escape seemed impossible. As time passed, one by one, their friends started to disappear. At first, they thought it was just a prank, but soon they realized that this was all too real. The door to the room was locked in front of Rena, and she had no idea where the rest of her friends had gone. By then, Rena understood she wasn't alone. Something else lurked in the room with her. The secret of room 306. Eventually, Rena discovered a secret in an old book that revealed a bloody murder had taken place in room number 306. Since then, the spirits had been trapped in the room, unable to escape. She knew that these spirits' only goal was to ensure that no one would leave the room alive. The door of room 306 remained locked forever, trapping the spirits within, unable to free themselves. Rena realized that her survival was impossible, and after uncovering the horrifying truth of room 306, she was prepared to face her final moments and confront the terrifying reality that awaited her. Mysterious voices and accidents. The night had passed, and the hotel building remained lifeless, except for the eerie whispers that occasionally echoed through the halls. Rena's mind was clouded with the voices she had heard from room 306. The silence was deafening, yet the whispers, the sorrow, the pain, and the hushed voices had begun to numb her thoughts. When Rena called out to her friends, there was no response. She frantically called their names in the darkness, but only silence greeted her. Fear gripped her, making her thoughts spiral into unsettling imaginations, as if she had entered a dead end with no escape. Suddenly, An unexpected sound came from the window. The branches of the trees, which had been still, suddenly rustled. A small shadow moved beneath the trees, and for a moment, Rena's heart stopped. It felt as if something or someone was lurking, feeding off their fear. The door to another world. Rena and her remaining friends, who had tried to resist their fear, now realized that this hotel was no ordinary place. It was a space where reality and illusions blurred together. The fact that room 306's door wouldn't open meant only one thing. They had crossed into another world. One night, as they attempted to sleep, a blinding light suddenly illuminated the room. They were drawn toward it, hypnotized by its glow. As they approached, a window creaked open on its own. Their eyes dared to look inside, and just as they reached the threshold, a chilling voice whispered, "Do you wish to return?" Rena hesitated before answering. She knew that whatever lurked inside room 306 had the power to change their fate forever. She had no idea where this path would lead, but both fear and curiosity gripped her heart. The pursuit of lost souls. Rena and her remaining friends faced the terrible truth of room 306. The space had transformed into a narrow passage, leading them down an unknown path. There was no one left behind. As they stepped through the doorway, the room shifted into something unrecognizable. Faces they once knew were now distorted and lifeless, as if death had claimed them. They realized that escaping this room was nothing but a dream, and now, the cursed entities lurking within the mirrors, doors, and shadows were hunting them. Every step they took reminded them that the room would never let them go. The final truth of room 306. In a final moment of realization, Rena understood that the purpose of this room was not just to imprison souls. It was to consume them. The truth of room 306 was more terrifying than she had ever imagined. Anyone who entered this room never left. This was no ordinary hotel. It was a domain ruled by spirits that forced its victims to confront their fears and sins. Rena's final thought was the most chilling of all. She was now part of this cursed place. She and her friends had become permanent residents, trapped within the walls of room 306, doomed to haunt the next unfortunate souls who dared to enter. The door to room 306 would remain sealed forever. Its dark secret could never be unraveled, for those who tried were already lost. A new beginning. The history of room 306 would never change, but the souls trapped within it would remain, whispering, waiting. As their eyes closed, their bodies ceased to move. The hotel stood in eerie silence, like a forgotten tomb. Yet, within the depths of its cursed walls, the sound of footsteps would never cease, because something still roamed inside room 306, waiting for a new beginning. Remember, never step into a place where reality and illusions merge.